Anti-war religion and spirituality are beautiful, loving efforts, always calling out to all to be kind and peaceful. But their inspirations are badly hampered by failure to observe and counter the technological, instinct-twisted, financial, political, cause and effect mechanics of organized mass murder. We are encouraged to imagine that God, if beseeched, will intervene so that humans need not be responsible for building roadblocks across our own highway to hell. You Japanese gather each year 1 million strong at your Nagasaki and Hiroshima memorials, with songs, prayers, poems, candles, love and peace in the air. Your heavenly truths will traverse the skies of the earth, finally entering all those sick, evil brains and lost hearts, someday forming a mighty shield just as the final, fiery doomsday sword descends. Ya think? Loving inspiration, pretty please, already sang every Sunday for 10,000 years, drowned out by the laughter of the war architects, roaring ever louder over thundering horses' hooves, blasts of gunpowder, screams of dying children, and uranium's first 2 starbursts merely culminating history's first 500 million murdered souls and families. Never again, you wish? Then lift your hands of action against befouled leaders' freedom to arm and kill, not just your eyes and hearts in impotent hope and prayer. Until you do something, never mind, never again. Your symbol might as well be the mushroom cloud. Bring it on! Because long ago, the sweet, appealing white dove of all our dreams of peace flew 5 feet in the air and done got shot. As you Japanese know better than anyone, nuclear power plants are filthy, bankrupting, meltdown, and megatons catastrophe. And you should know that your own government, claiming moral leadership of the world community against nuclear weapons, instead employs Armageddon's ultimate strategy, the giant lie. Japanese plutonium enough to slap together thousands of giant nuclear bombs in an eye blink quietly radiates below your public consciousness and conscience. Billions flow into your nuclear industry's coffers from your taxes, plenty returning to Greece, politicians' ready private palms. Now you must pony up trillions more for a 50-year failing effort to clean up Fukushima's death, ever spreading across your nation and everyone's oceans. And you can only pray that less and not more cancer over generations will result than from the American atom bombings. Your leaders correctly warn that an Asian nuclear bomb and missile race is well underway. Each country contemplating the American-Russian model of rushing past mere mutual assured destruction to first strike horror ambitions of superiority and victory. 100% of the world's leaders know exactly what they deliberately hide from us. Mere Earth citizen missile fissile fodder. That giant stocks of plutonium or enriched uranium are accumulated and stored with the full intention of constructing world-shattering masses of nuclear bombs at a moment's notice. And the laissez-faire world missile industry ensures that any such explosive nation merely writes a check from its long-suffering, malleable citizens' accounts to deploy rockets enough to waste a continent or 3. Never again, my ass. Review my videos for a world treaty best designed to convert you big shots last, not first. Us 1 or 2 students of the most critical but ignored field in history, the peace movement, remember that since Bertrand Russell's millions in European streets against atmospheric bomb testing, they won that fight. Only you Japanese keep bringing masses to stand against the nuclear devil. And now you must gather monthly, not just yearly. Each and every dear heart's poem or song backed up by one small action, and next week another. Beyond speakers like you or me presuming to represent rights and needs of earthlings, some of us gotta go there, actually travel to every country on earth. Then recruit local activists to research their nation's corruption and militarism, but also constitution and ethical traditions. In each nation, you citizens will analyze your history of arsenal and army building, defensive versus offensive war fighting, and military and business manipulations of elections and government. Then you'll appeal to your public and each branch of government with legal battle and progression to stop the evil with permanent reforms, coordinating with similarly comprehensive efforts of your neighbors just beyond each of your borders. Don't y'all know that most voters on this planet, given a clear choice between returning government we can afford and survive to us versus letting the big dogs run, would swift kick those curs yelping back under the porch in a heartbeat? I have explained that every private dollar given to a politician purchases favor for me over equality for the rest. Now, just my vote and public citizens' communication can each be matched by anyone who disagrees with me. But when I throw more money at my candidate or media shilling for him or her than a voter leaning to the opponent can afford, I have more electioneering power. My candidate goes up in the polls, the opponent's voters weaken, and my candidate gets elected, pledged to serve my interests against the public's, 'cause he knows which side his career and wallet will continue to be buttered on. So the watershed moment in every nation's citizen movement is court action to stop politicians' gifts, perfectly defined by the term bribery, followed by both court order and legislative cooperation to appropriate funds for public campaign finance. Unequal private money outlawed, replaced by equal public money for equal time debate, exactly as every democratic parliament in history prepared for their representative body votes. Achieve this one remedy that Republican democracy cannot even begin without, and classic commercial military oligarchy dies. Suddenly new, loving leaders start winning elections, while more habitually and genetically greedy aggressors keep losing them. The tiny citizens' agitations of you and I explode into powerful national politicians' honest, compassionate public service and further reform. Now, on each continent, the smaller nations already closer to safe electrical power, less business seizure of government, and less than rapacious invasion and city-smashing militaries will balance their budgets by law and initiate our swords into plowshares treaty with neighbors of similarly developing nation treaty opportunity profiles. But we don't have decades of non-urgent cushion to let the big boys run rampant. So let's gear up a worldwide press against the nuclear power plants, educating everyone that all uranium enrichment rushes through uncleanable spent fuel rod pools to immense meltdown accidents or easily accomplished terrorism with mega depression and death potential straight to centrifuge final uranium purification for uranium bombs and fuel rod diversion to plutonium bombs. The same plant to doomsday chain reaction marketed across the earth under the lying slogan, Atoms for Peace. The more trillions you can make and billions you might kill, the more gigantic and deliberate the lies needed to cover up and foist upon us the ultimate threat and abuse. So far, the state of widely known legal peace theory and proposition hasn't even reached pathetic. One great bestseller did define the nuclear crisis with immense eloquence, power, wisdom, and beauty. Jonathan Schell's The Fate of the Earth. This great book analyzed the ethical depravity and overwhelming physical menace of nuclear weapons, but offered no discussion of cause or cure. For the next 15 years, no well-publicized solution emerged from any other writer. So Mr. Schell took a shot at a treaty to implement his imperative to do something. His book was The Abolition. He should have called it The Permission. He recommends that a world full of nuclear nations merely dismantle their bombs and missiles to a carefully arranged 8 weeks of full-speed reassembly, if and when a few get mad or ambitious. They are also to negotiate sagaciously during this interval, also regarded as a handy cooling down period, not just heating up period. Yeah, right. Like every advisor on both sides wouldn't be demanding 100% race to beat the other side to launch day while publicly spouting lies of restraint to trick the stupid losers of World War III. Mr. President, we've got a plan to beat them by 3 days. We'll smash every missile helpless in their silos and all their leaders, armies, and cities too. Then we'll be Earth masters for 1,000 years. Mr. Schell thinks to save the world by recalibrating the button from 8 seconds to 8 weeks, with each bomb component deliberately left intact, like beautifully, perfectly cut pieces to a puzzle, only scattered far and wide. The committed, corrupted warriors whose power he neglects to dismantle need only sidestep or boot out the inspector monitors to begin the utterly unstoppable, much less negotiable race to doomsday, 1,000 times more certain, with the irresistible lure of zero opposition to the first strike. Mr. Schell buys the immensely popular notion that the nuclear genie cannot be put back in the bottle, At best, we can only shuffle around and stare at the pieces. At bottom is another extremely stupid, defeatist idea. Just because corrupt warriors demand that those handy pieces be left around for them to seize again, we must throw up our hands, leave their corrupt schemes intact, and, as the basis for all negotiations and pretend peace plans, leave the little boys their tinker toys. You may assume that Mr. Shell, plus every war or diplomacy strategist drawing a business-boosting paycheck, not to mention us brainwashed public, got the save the bomb parts imperative from 60 years of bad faith arms control negotiation, also guided, inspired, and taught by the death machine salesmen themselves. So now, what happens when we, the people, design and negotiate weapons of mass destruction disarmament? Every formerly sacrosanct plutonium and bomb-ready uranium vault gets raided. Each hunk of death, with another million names inscribed on it, gets ground to a powder, sprinkled into 10 tons of concrete, and dropped 7 miles down into the Marianas Trench. Every goddamn missile on this planet is melted down to paperweights, excepting the few needed for satellite launches and supply. All Earth's uranium deposits become off limits and guarded by satellites and soldiers. Mr. Shell deals with not one shred of the historic, corrupt, commercial impetus to military oligarchy. Every brick of our weapons, armies, governments, and businesses of mass destruction Tower of Babylon is left intact. But we, you and I, have consulted in depth for the constitutional recapture of our government from the pirates. We believe that with enough days building love and care into law, our family ethic can destroy even the patriarch hunter's commercial military evil of the universe. At 13 years old, my first of 48 scheming nuclear disarmament, I decided that nuclear weapons could be destroyed far more easily than they were built. Soon after, I learned that the industrial essence of nuclear weapons is culling out the tiny fraction of radioactive U-235 from tons of mined U-238. Neither terrorists nor any nation under the inspection of any bomb-banning treaty that keeps destroying the enriched uranium and plutonium until it is gone and does not permit more uranium mining and enriching could accomplish any more of this forbiddingly complex industrial process in secret. Every method of purifying radioactive uranium requires a specialized, complex, high-tech factory, impossible to build and operate in secret, with less than a fancy, obvious, international high-tech and science project. From gaseous diffusion to specialized centrifuges, each industrial component manufactured from known world visible origins in a sincere treaty designed by family, not power lovers, would be simply but thoroughly outlawed without the players' atomic age bullshit. Allow us to proceed with bomb potential equipment that we promise to use for peaceful purposes only. 75 years of getting burned with this ingenious crap yields the two answers to save the world. 1. You're lying. And 2. No. Zip, zero, zilch, nada. Uranium games? Anyone caught with so much as a pea of uranium straight from the earth gets life at hard labor pouring cement over uranium mines. And even you will end up deciding that love beats power. Any student of nuclear history learns early that nuclear power not only cements in place the world nuclear bomb race due to the irresistible temptation to further enrich to 90% the 8% stuff needed for power plants, and the bomb-ready plutonium formed by the ongoing changes of nuclear fuel rods heating water to steam for electricity-producing turbines, but also learns that the so-called necessity of growing nuclear power to meet rising demand is nothing more than government's willful failure to protect their citizens with teaching and helping population control at sustainable levels and growing safe power industries with a tiny fraction of war money. 100 nuclear historians all agree that nuclear power is the edifice from which all nuclear bombs are made. Thus, its dismantling is the only way to end bomb construction, as well as stopping short of more inevitable catastrophic nuclear fuel meltdowns. Not one professional from any of the large range of science, histories, and humanities, not to mention law and politics, has ever outlined the reforms essential to the build-up of law and build-down of technology required to save us, or clarified the 10 millennia emergency with a plain description of how this horror was built up and sustained with plenty of practice, killing half a billion people. All we get is admiring recaps of history's vicious, greedy power games, but never asking the obvious questions. Where'd this evil power come from? And how do we kill it before we're all dead? Yeah, they've left it to amateur flunkies, you and I, to isolate the problems and get with the solutions. Some will object that a total nuclear ban would stop those cancer-fighting radiation machines. Actually, in the few decades needed to return uranium to the earth or sea, 1,000 lives could be saved by cancer prevention education for every dozen now extended by therapeutic radiation. And quite soon another 20 million with safe, genetic, cancer-killing immune system medically manufactured cells. And a few decades and tiny fractions of death money for life could not only nail population and cancer control, but also expand and cheapen our safe renewable routes to electric power. So, Steve, you're full of military reform, plus a batch of real world-saving stuff to spend the savings on. You don't imagine folks inspired to peace law will step right into the other protective projects we gotta have, do ya? Well, as Tricky Dicky Nixon used to say, I'm glad you asked me that question. Every 2 citizens in neighboring countries brainstorming their anti-bribery and weapons treaty can go ahead and write into it the rescues about 1/3 of the peace and government honesty dividends should directly fund the other 2/3 going straight back to every wise, loving, but cash-strapped family. We might as well name the treaty Swords into Plowshares. You and I will consult in depth for the constitutional recapture of our government from the pirates, understanding that upon success, our family love will go on to destroy even the evil of the universe. Just as we so often batter away the most dangerous of wolves from our own domestic doors. My speeches simply describe the family of man, as of yet unformed, which must become the legal heart and soul of public affairs if we are to save the world. Have you noticed that the entire history of nuclear arms negotiations between the American and Russian superpowers merely accelerates towards doomsday, using Mr. Shell's same system of pulling out and saving hunks of uranium and plutonium from dismantled bombs they pretend to subtract from arsenals, while keeping the deadly fissile guts ever fresh and well maintained, in readiness for a new arms race and rush to final war when the pacified public forgets or even just blinks. You will recall several parts of my talks that describe the greatest propaganda achievement of their war system, the capture of virtually the entire world's mind, including all peace theorists, until everyone believes that nuclear weapons have such ultimate validity and permanence that to advocate their flat-out total destruction would be utterly wrong, unwise, unnecessary, and impossible to achieve anyway. Until even the very last of the few famous peace theorists rolls over and throws in his lot for World War III. Well, they're still missing one obscure, pathetic little punk, aren't they? And you're about to make it too. How plain and clear is this nuclear evil? Destructiveness allowed destroys. Total power, total death. We have one thing to do: to live. We destroy this evil legally, physically, and completely before it destroys us. All claims that this is impossible come from people who refuse to try. There are no professionals in the field of nuclear disarmament. The non-existent science of actually banning the bomb. Only men who work for governments negotiating arms control, a diplomatic specialty of juggling weapon systems slightly up and down to placate a public afraid of world suicide, but far less frightened than the negotiators' governments are of losing industrial politician profits if deep cuts were actually agreed to. Trust us as we back away from the precipice, the merchants of death lie. Are you aware of any professionals who study why and how men build and direct war, each major way, for the direct purpose of scheming how to stop them? Then to embark on the national, world, and legal campaign to physically force the weapons down and destroyed, focusing on both weapons of mass destruction and conventional civilian invasion and slaughter. No? Nobody on that job? And how many are paid to do the exact opposite? Survey those professions, industries, and hundreds of millions of numbers. So what's my weird motivation against these odds? I truly believe that you and I are gonna kick their butts. And my secret? You. And to a small degree, me. Because I think I've identified the chain of war and designed a link cutter. Problem is, once we get the blades around bribery, the long handles are further apart than my two arms can reach. So if you'll get on that other side, we'll get it done. Our secret is that love, joy, mercy, and hope can give a single human being more power than greed, anger, hate, and complacent satisfaction or selfish ambition can fuel inspiration of 1 billion foolish automatons. As far as I've heard, university peace study programs prepare students to shape and mold their public service careers away from exacerbation of war and towards working for peace. I will make inquiries about any systematic attack on the commercial political institutions of war. Have they tried and failed, like me, to achieve legal and financial and weapon and army destroying national and international change? Or do collegiate peace studies mainly assign peer-reviewed intellectual analysis and project even its public careerists to work benevolently with quasi-legal structures of commercial arsenals to encourage voluntary restraint and individual wisdom? You know what I think. Good luck with that. Warriors fight for money and hate. We fight for love and life. They don't know it yet, but they're in big trouble. Far better than I, some of you will research and nail the mighty weapons companies bleeding all of us to fashion their conventional wars, killing around 1 million or more each year. Let's trace each company's production out to the killing fields, the majority fueling aggression, necessitating more sales for defense against same. The best reporters stay in war zones with the people who are battered by war's savagery, suddenly losing their loved ones, homes, possessions, money, and work. All they can say is to sadly list their shocking, unrecoverable losses of their entire lives' purpose, meaning, love, work, and happiness. People all around them keep dying of untreated wounds or malnutrition. The venal goals of one or both sides' competitors to smash everything and everyone fade to ridiculousness. And our hearts break for the tiny, wounded orphans with eyes haunted by pain, sadness, loneliness, and incomprehension. They talk to hungry, freezing old people who will know only hatred and danger, never again love and security. On and on, year after decade, goes suffering, hardly relieved, only increased by each and every life's pointless end, as unlimited weapons and soldiers pour into each homeland, all to satisfy power's unchecked ambition. You're How to Save the World YouTube video documents a piece of the puzzle our lawyer takes to court. Someday, every weapon maker in the world will decline production numbers and mass lethality by law each year until all war and urban murder kills 10%, then 1% of Earth's present bloodbath. Review my speeches. Decent recall of expert literature without any of the page-by-page proven references even the shabbiest scholars provide. Would you please dig into my important contentions and find proof or disproof? A number of foundations should commission peace studies far better than mine. My theory of technology-twisted instinct is easy enough for sociology to prove or disprove. Strong science supports legal argument. Can you help research the worldwide weapons industry's utter freedom to jack invasion and civilian slaughter weaponry until every religious or racial hater can blast 300 bullets a minute while they are not wrapping 1,000 nails around the best universally available high explosives? Publish where each aggressor gets their weapons and reveal the consent and encouragement of every company's home government. Publicize the nuclearists' financial, private motives and gains. Shine your light on all nations' roads to unrecoverable public debt and detail the heightening drives of many towards World War III. Someday, your research will be summarized and available to billions of voters, millions of leaders, and hundreds of courts. Then all will demand the exact suggested laws of conduct for our human family. Cross-reference your video to any other format with documentation power. Just remember that failed movements say, please, please, please. And successful ones knock heads, figuratively, and change laws and behavior. Never stop insisting that phases 1 and 2 of world nuclear disarmament must simultaneously progress. Phase 1 being the smaller or less heavily armed and nuclearized treaty initiators, and Phase 2 as follows: America's and Russia's 15,000 plus bombs destroyed down to China's 1,000 level. Trio then reduces to India's several hundred, now all trimmed to Israel's 200, and then Pakistan's 100, etc. These bad boys, killing us all, will soon need to be embargoed, not coddled, by all treaty adherents if they keep dragging the planet over the cliff. All treaty nations and those reforming towards treaty eligibility phase out nuclear power, destroy all plutonium and as much uranium as soon as possible, and ditto nuclear fuel rods. Destroy Nuclear Supply Incorporated. Build 500 new coal-burning plants to take up the slack. I'm kidding. A few percent out of the world's war budget is piled every year into solar and wind power till these technologies achieve mass and economy, as both are on the literal cusp of doing so right now. Cancer radiation reactors are consolidated, then phased out. We're using peace dividends to explode genetic immune system cancer cures while multiplying prevention, public and education, and coercion to slash tobacco and booze and boost nutrition and fitness. Remind me to list my remaining collection of nuclear histories. Out-of-print ones need to get on the internet for our understanding of the financial greed, titanically dangerous strategy, and vicious moral bankruptcy behind the leadership for annihilation. Even I am not angry enough to end speech 7 with the word annihilation. I'm a track enthusiast. I think of my efforts to recruit you and yours to find even more help as a relay race. America keeps sending killer quartets of 100-meter talents to world championships and Olympics. Only the Jamaicans can touch us for raw speed. But at the moment of truth, the delicate, precise handoff to the next sprinter, we Americans keep dropping the baton. I have no doubt of the talent, drive, and purpose you have. 1 million yous all over the world to run our team through the second, third, or final 100 to the finish line, the promised land. But our greatest danger, challenge, and difficulty is, will you see me coming and begin your own sprint? Will you listen with your heart and reach back for my essence I have carried as far as I can and make it your own? Your race will feel so good, so right, but will you reach out so another will surely take hold and get going next? Love in action is our best effort to pass the baton.